Hey, fellow lockdowners, how you doing?
Yeah,
Is
very well,
that
thank you.
good? Good.
Yeah,
Can you?
thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jane.
I'm loving your background
Don't
as
worry.
well. There, that's brilliant, Roz.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Well, I had my laundry before, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone on Facebook, Instagram as well. People checking in. Christian from Argentina in the forest there. Hello. So, guys on Zoom, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just down in the bottom left-hand side of your screen, there should be a mute button. What we're going to ask to do is, as we go along, if there's any really, really, really urgent questions to anything I'm saying, feel free just to frantically wave a hand. And Matt will ask the questions to me as we go along. But really, if you could hold your questions till the end, we're going to prioritise some time for Q&A as well.
Okay.
Okay, good. I think that's everyone.
Do you want us muted, Tom?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it's just because Matt said to unmute. Yeah, unmute.
Oh, did he? So we've just got. I think we got. That's it. Nearly everyone. Elliot,
Right.
Paul. Good. I can't hear any other background noise come through. Cool. So, lockdown, isolation. How's everyone finding it? It's not that easy, is it? It's been certainly a challenging time since the people that normally come into Human Health since the last time I saw you, and from all walks of life really. Businesses, small, middle, large organisations, charities, schools. Things have been shut down, and it caused chaos. But is it the right thing to do? Undoubtedly, yes. Here in Jersey, the government's done a fantastic job at organising and rearranging stuff. Certainly been a lot of organised chaos, but we're making progress, which is the main thing. And so the purpose of today, the reason why we want to put this on is it's been really difficult in the last week or two, turning everything around, just like we all have been in our personal lives, to really reach out and get in touch. And we're in a position to do that now. So we wanted to make sure that we could give some kind of good value, some clarity, and also a lot of people have been getting in touch with us and asking questions, with things that they're genuinely struggling with in their health and their well-being. And something that's really important to me is to make sure that there's already a bit of a health crisis going on in our populations already, and I don't want people coming out of this crisis sicker than they went into it. So I'm not going to answer all your questions and be your guru today, but if you can go away with one thing that was useful, that would be fantastic. And feel free to ask any other questions too. Okay, so just to kick off, we asked the question, is isolation making us sick, and what can we do about it? So what you would have seen around you is that already what we call Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that some of you probably already know quite a bit about, has been shattered. Now, the hierarchy of needs is on the basis that humans have physiological needs, such as water, food, a shelter, etc., contact, which are needs to us to really stay alive. And so the reason why we saw stockpiling and everything going on is because as soon as those restrictions of social distancing and the access to other areas of the world that we saw kick off, all of a sudden we're in a situation where our primitive human reflex for stress and survival kicks in, and we go straight to our physiological needs, right down the bottom here that we've written on the board: food, water, shelter, and clothes. Stockpile it and make sure we've got enough for however this thing lasts, which obviously we don't quite know just yet. The next level of it is safety, health, well-being, financial, emotional. And so when humans have these two fundamental pillars and bases of our physiological needs rocked, it causes a huge problem for us. And the main issue for this that concerns me is mental health, mental and emotional well-being. A couple of friends and close family members work in the hospitals, and particularly A&E. And the number one answer that I had to my question of what are you guys seeing in there when this all kicked off was a huge increase in mental and emotional well-being complaints and issues that related to coronavirus, which is completely understandable. Higher up on the needs, we then have our social, so our family, our friends, intimacy, all of it goes out the window. Suddenly, if we've got grandparents and people that, we can't access and get to other than waving at them through a window. Some of you know that come to the practice, we've just had our first child, Georgina and I, my other half, Frederick. which has been an incredible experience, and he's definitely got a story to be told as he grows up as well. It's, and so sleep deprived, etc. If you can see the bags under my eyes, ignore them. I'm usually a lot more beautiful. So, family, friends and intimacy is extremely important to all of us, and suddenly needing to socially distance from people. We're often quite a contactable, society, hugging, touching and stuff. And when you remove that, key brain chemicals like oxytocin and hormones in our body, which we call the love chemicals, can't be released. And that's only a small part, but it's an extremely important part of something that is part of our everyday life. On the next level, self-esteem, self-respect, self-confidence, self-worth. If you remove the foundations of these lower physiological needs of human beings and our safety and our social settings that we're used to, your self-esteem gets knocked. This then has, a massive impact on our relationships. And so, I'll be talking about it a little bit later on, but it's really not uncommon. If you've all been experiencing situations with your loved ones, your children, where you're starting to bicker in the household, I'm sure everyone does it sometimes anyway, but if it's been increasing, it's completely natural. And the reason is all of this stuff. No one's exempt from it. I'm far from perfect too. But the key thing, which I believe is important, is presence and awareness, and actually just, pausing for a moment, because this whole thing's a bit of a snowball that's just rolling, and, just taking stock of where we are and becoming aware of it. And once you've done that, then the next best action to take is vulnerability and honesty, and sharing that with each other too, because without physical contact to those close to you, if you can have those two in the same household, obviously that's brilliant, but those close and those further that you're not having contact with, sharing, honesty, vulnerability and sharing is probably the closest we can get to in physical contact terms. So right at the top of the scale here, we've got self-actualization, reaching one's full potential, goals, enlightenment, which in the middle of a, international pandemic and emergency probably isn't in the top of everyone's criteria to be fulfilling, but some people will be. And to be honest, it's probably one of the best things you can do if and when you can find that space. But first, you just got to restore those different states. So obviously, for those of you that don't know me, us at Human Health, we're a health office that's based in Jersey. My name's Tom. I'm the owner and founder of it. We've got a fantastic team over here. And our emphasis, whilst I'm a trained chiropractor, our emphasis is on whole health, functional medicine, helping people prevent lifestyle issues, health issues, lifestyle disease, but also we have a huge focus on general day-to-day well-being, and looking after ourselves too. So I'm juggling between these different screens, so if I'm focusing on one, don't feel left out. I love you all. So moving on to this next section, I really believe this is a time for health. Before we went into this crisis, so I've put here my little timeline. COVID-19 intercepts right into the middle of this timeline. Pre-COVID-19, our healthcare system has been strongly built on a sick care system. And, the fact that our strengths are built off of things that we're good on, you can see now why our healthcare system, whilst it's being inundated, the reason why it's doing such a fantastic job is the simple fact that the one thing that we're good at doing is sick care. Now, the one reason why before we went into this crisis, we were having also a pandemic in general lifestyle disease and issues in mental health and well-being, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, etc. A lot of preventable diseases, we're not yet on top of, and I believe we'll actually see exactly the same, if not probably more after this, depending on how people look after themselves during this time. And so, whilst it's great that we're good at sick care and that they've done and are doing a fantastic job, healthcare, we don't have a system that's set up for healthcare. And so our focus at Human Health is on teaching you guys and teaching us principles of human health that we can look after ourselves. Things that we can do in two areas. One that we call active health. Now, active health is things that we can actively do ourselves. So, diet, movement, exercise, etc., social things. Passive health is something that you can't do yourself. So that's seeing a chiropractor, acupuncturist, massage therapist, personal trainer if you want that extra intervention, and doing something in a way that you can't do yourself too. And we're really blessed in Jersey. We've got a fantastic amount of practitioners of all different disciplines, from emotional health through to physical contact, and a lot of them are offering online services. So, whilst a lot of you are here today, if you're struggling, wherever you are in the world, not just in Jersey, reach out online, because there's a lot of practitioners of different disciplines who can offer you fantastic services. And this is the time to be reaching out and getting help in the way that you can do too. So we've got one person there with we need to mute, if you can do. We'll just take that off too. So, the World Health Organization's definition of health is that human health is a complete state of mental, physical, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease and infirmity. Okay, meaning that if before this crisis you believed that you had good well-being, and we see it all the time here in human health, we get amazing clients come in. People come in, and I say, how healthy do you think they are? And they say, yeah, really good. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fantastic, because on your sheet, I can see your blood pressure's high, you've just been diagnosed with diabetes, you're on those medications for that, etc., etc. And I'm like, well, actually, it's not really a picture of well-being. And if I was to ask the question, why do you think you've got a good level of well-being when your papers are telling me this about your health and my examinations on your body? And the reason is that we truly have been brought up believing and thinking that health is the absence of sickness. So if I haven't got a cold or a flu or a lifestyle disease, I'm all right. I haven't got any illness. The fact is that that's not the truth. Health, as the World Health Organization clearly states in definition, is a multitude of things. One of them, which we're now seeing too, that's really important, is the social side too. And so at Human Health, we believe that health, and good quality health, leads to freedom in your life, which leads to the ability to cultivate happiness. And I think this is probably one of the first times in history, especially now we're so well connected over the internet, that we can see how clearly our health and our happiness are linked. Just move on to this next section. When we ask the question, is lockdown causing us to be sick? The reason why I believe there's a lot of factors which we need to be aware of here and we need to help ourselves with is because whilst lockdown is serving a fantastic purpose, there are key fundamental principles that we need to understand about your body, and so I'm going to go through this just now. Matt, have we had any questions at all burning? I haven't seen any hands waving.
No, I've only got the spreadsheet of questions if you want me to ask them.
Okay, fantastic. So, in terms of the problem here, I hope everyone can see the sheet well enough. If not, I'll try and draw it out. There's always two things that we say at Human Health that are affecting us in life, and that, to be honest, are never going away. And one is gravity. Gravity is and always will be, a fundamental part of our gravitational system and our physical laws that is going down. That has an impact on our body. Now, one of our brain's fundamental jobs is to keep us up against gravity and holding us erect. The other thing that's never going away is stress and various types of stressors. So the key types of stressors, physical ones, emotional, mental, environmental, which gets split into both environmental outside in our environment, in our house, in our work environment, etc., but internal too, nutritional things, so things that we put in our body, products that we put on our body, all these things have the potential to do us either good or harm. And the last one, which we have the least amount of research for, is electromagnetic and radiation stresses. Now, compared to 100 years ago, we live in a world that is filled with electromagnetic stresses. If you think back to the 1920s when radar, the last pandemic of the Spanish flu was actually around the same time that, a lot of radars were being introduced for transcommunication around the world. Now we're living in a 4G world where we've all got devices, multiple devices which are connecting in with 4G signals. We've got other types of radar going on. We're flying in planes with high amounts of radiation coming through. Sometimes we have to take x-rays, etc. And a lot of this is calibrated. And is it safe within certain limits? Yes. But we all have to become aware and monitor our exposure to it, because whilst we need a significant amount of more research, that's done to show us exactly what the effects are, the truth of the matter is that it does affect our bodies, and there are certain frequencies which have an effect. Now, the minimal research we do have shows us that it's not going to affect you on its own alone, but when in combination with a number of other stresses that are common to human beings, such as anything from emotional stress to a toxic diet, the impact catalyzes. And the reason is whilst we can't see these radioactive frequencies that are going through our body, they interact with ions and metabolites within us, and that influences our cellular health deep inside our body's function. So these two things, gravity and stress, relating them to a lockdown point of view, when we look at, let's say, mental stress and carrying on from Maslow's hierarchy, when we saw, at least in Jersey, that video from the chief minister letting us know that we were going into a lockdown, whilst a lot of us were already knew, and actually I got a text message from someone who actually sent me the script, and I'm thinking, have you written it? How did you have the script before the guy's even done it online? Everyone immediately was already going into a panic, and it certainly happened then, and there was further stockpiling that happened from the shops in the few days after that. So if you look on this section here, as soon as we perceive through our five senses, and I'm focusing on the eyes there, but we've got our five senses in our body, as soon as we perceive that we're under threat as a human being, there's a cascade of a stress response that happens. Now, the stress response really is that there's a signaling that happens in the body from our awareness to our central nervous system inside the center of our brain. The nerve signals have a cascade of events that kick off things and hormones called cortisol and adrenaline in our bodily systems that react in our brain and have a cascade of processes including muscle tension, the increase of things called cytokines, which affect a part of our immune system for inflammation, catecholamines too, which are part of our innate stress response that activate and light up areas of our body and brain that cause things like the dilation of our pupils, the tension of our bodies, the redirection of oxygen from our organs out to our muscles. Now, this is okay if a tiger's chasing you in that flight and fight state for a short period of time, but if that's going ongoingly, day in, day out, and you're perceiving that your physiological needs are not being met, and that your social needs are not being met, and that you're not in a safe, your family's financial health and well-being safety is at risk, you're constantly going to be in that state. We just had a hand raised from Roz. Roz, do you want to ask a question? You can take yourself off mute if you'd like to.
Am I allowed to unmute now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. It was really more. I was just thinking about what you were saying about the amygdalic response.
Yep.
And the fight or flight, and what I've been finding with my online clients. I should probably explain for people who don't know me. I'm a psychotherapist.
Yeah. So we've got Roz here in Jersey. Roz is a psychotherapist, everyone. So if you can't, Roz, I'll repeat your question afterwards for those on Facebook or Instagram that can't hear.
Yeah, sure. And what I've been finding, what my online clients have been finding really helpful, is to tie in little mindful moments to habits that they do during the day. So for example, boiling the kettle, they might just then focus on the breath, because it's just about trying to make it really translatable into this weird situation that we're currently in. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that in case that's helpful.
Thanks so much. That's such a valuable point. And it's something I was going to touch on was perception, when I talked about vulnerability earlier, and presence, and just becoming aware and stopping those moments, when I've forgotten who was it that said that, when we're in, I think it's Eckhart Tolle that talks about if you're in a prison cell, in that moment, if you're present, you're actually just in a room. So whilst we're in lockdown,
it's the guy who wrote The Meaning of Life, isn't it? Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, that guy.
I think. But the other quick thing, just before I go, because I don't want to take up good time, is there's some codes of practice for adolescents working online, so I'm going to send it to Matt later.
Yeah, thank you. That's really important. We know that adolescent health is
no worries.
Already impacted quite a bit.
Absolutely. I will have to leave early because I've got an appointment at 1:00 online.
Okay, sure.
But Matt's going to send me a copy. Anyway, nice
Any questions you've got, please send them across as well, because I'm sure you've got some really intelligent questions that people would value. But thanks for your time, Roz.
No worries. I'm going to unmute again now.
So those of you that didn't hear that, so Ros was just saying she's a trained psychotherapist working over in Jersey, and she was just saying that, you know, a lot of her clients, she's giving the tips of just becoming mindful in tiny moments, so that whilst the mind and the, you know, our reptilian brain basically is freaking out and thinking, God, what's going to happen to my family in 4 weeks, or if this carries on for a year, if you, in that moment, if you're just putting the kettle on, it's just stopping for a second and being mindful of actually what it is that you're already doing. And try and become aware of that stress response activated in your body, and calm it back down again, to just know that you're right here, you're just actually a person putting the kettle on. So, moving on, I could talk for hours on the stress response, but we're all here to talk about the solution. So what can we do for ourselves? And Ros has already kindly brought us onto it. So the first thing I was going to talk about was presence and self-awareness. So exactly what she just said, that we just need to become aware. We're all in this together. Everyone is being impacted by it. You know, the first step to any solution in this kind of circumstance is just become present of our behaviour. If you feel you're getting a bit irritable, that's normal. You know, it's quite an irritating and frustrating situation. You know, if you feel that, you know, you're freaking out about finances or about your job situation, again, just try and bring it back, pause, and just take stock of where you are. Share that with a loved one. You know, be honest about it and be vulnerable, and try and bounce between each other and try and get some solutions and some ideas about where we were. You know, just to be vulnerable about my own situation. You know, the other day, my partner and I, Georgie, you know, having a newborn baby, bless her, she's going through a lot more than I am, having to breastfeed, and, you know, we're both up during the night, but I'm doing nothing compared to her. And there's no two ways around it. It's intense. And so, you know, we were like, "Gee, this is actually quite stressful with everything that's going on top of it." And we sat down, we're like, right, okay, you know, what can we do from tomorrow to change these kind of behaviours and these thoughts and the way that we're thinking, to make sure that we don't repeat this? As Einstein said, you know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting you're going to get a different result. Moving on.
Sorry,
yeah.
Can you just ask, there's a few people that are on the audio that I need to mute.
Okay.
Can you just ask them to...
Yeah, guys, Matt's just said, for you, those of you on Zoom, there's a couple of you that, if you could just check in the left-hand corner of your screen, you've got stop video and mute. If you could click mute, that'd be really helpful. Apparently there's a bit of background interference coming through. 3 people. Okay, that's fantastic. So I wanted to talk about posture, breathing, movement, activity, the physical stresses and how we relieve that. You know, big problem in lockdown is if you're working from home, you do this. The posture's starting to go bad, isn't it? It's really not easy. You know, I was in an email exchange with someone the other day, and she said to me, actually, I've got a quick note about my work setup because I'm getting neck pain and I might have to end up coming for an emergency appointment. So I said, okay, why don't you just send me a quick picture of your work setup, take a selfie. So she sent a picture of her work setup, which is really normal. I've done this myself before. So you've got kitchen table, kitchen stool, perched up, iPad. So it's a recipe for disaster. If we take those principles of gravity going down, we know that every inch the chin juts out forward from our center of gravity can triple the weight of the head on the lower neck. Now the average human adult head weighs about 5 kilos, there or thereabouts. So, you know, theoretically speaking, every inch you're going forward, if you just drop out that inch, you're already taking a 5 kilo head to 15. Now, the human spine... pause. Matt, we're just having a technical difficulty. The meeting's going to run out soon. So we might need to
10 minutes.
reload and resend another link. Just for all of you that are coming in through Zoom, the meeting might run out soon. If that does happen, Matt's going to try and send you a new link. Otherwise, feel free, if you have a device, to go onto Facebook or Instagram to tune in live there too. It's completely up to you. So back onto the posture, the key things for a home sit-up, if you're working from home and you haven't already got it nailed, or if you're just really honest about it, you're just not having a good setup and you want to improve it, your screen needs to be at eye level, thereabouts. Your feet need to be on the ground, which is why kitchen stools aren't that good. And your arms ideally need to be in by your sides at about 90 degrees with your keyboard or whatever you're typing on close to you, or your iPad if you're there, so that your flexors and extensors in your forearm and your shoulders can be relaxed. Even if you've got a good setup and your arms are out there, can you see how it's really easy to have the tendency just to kind of go forwards and drop forwards, and immediately you're going to be putting pressure through taking your centre of gravity forwards on your upper back and on your neck and on your shoulders and your pecs too, okay, which isn't going to be very good at all. Any other tips for sitting at a desk? I think those are really the key ones. It's just becoming aware of your posture, making sure screen, arms, feet on the ground, back straight. Make sure you can have a back and lumbar support if you can. Sitting's far from perfect. Standing's not incredible too, but diversification, if I can talk, is good. So if you can get up, sit down, move around every now and again, that's really, really good thing to do. I try and use, you can get off Amazon, I think they're really cheap now actually. It's not even hydraulic, just a lifting standing desk adapter that you can whack a laptop on top to is good. If I don't have that at home, I also sometimes just stack up books and put that there to put something on top. Just obviously make sure it's stable so it doesn't fall down and hit your cup of coffee over everywhere too. So, breathing. Now, it's really easy to move on physical body and physical stresses straight onto exercise, right? And that's easy. You've got 2 hours a day, one bit of exercise. Make sure you go and do it. Do as much as possible. But there's something we can be doing better. When our stress response is activated and we're all stressed as we are at the moment, our breathing changes from being diaphragmatic and then really using our lungs to bring in a lot of oxygen, which our brain and body needs for digestion, for accurate, conscious thinking. And we start to get a lot less oxygen in, and we start to tighten up. And we breathe a lot more through our upper chest. And this is unconscious, you won't realise you're doing it. So if you are doing that, become aware of it. Now, general healthy breathing, you just want to relax your shoulders, you want to breathe through your tummy. Okay, as you breathe in, your tummy should expand and your kind of lower rib cage widen. And as you breathe out, you should just let go. There is a breathing technique. Now, I know we're going to be short on time for some, so for those of you at the end, if anyone wants to ask me a question on a breathing technique, there's a guy called Wim Hof, famously called the Iceman, who's come up with a breathing technique which he teaches big wave surfers and people, but it's fantastic for all of us. And the reason is, we've all got about 70,000 kilometers, give or take, of arteries, veins, cardiovascular systems, and these channels in our body for our blood. Believe it or not, if no one's told you, those cylinders and those channels are muscles. So if you breathe accurately, or you do a breathing exercise to get a lot of oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, you're training your cardiovascular system of 60, 70,000 kilometers of channels, very efficiently too. That doesn't mean you should replace that for going out for walks, okay? But it's just a really good tip to do. It's also really good at calming the stress response. It's very good at just relaxing the body. You actually get a little bit high too. You get high off your own supply, which I loved as a comment that he says. So we can talk a little bit more about that afterwards if someone wants to ask me that question. I'm happy to go through the technique. For movement, it's really important. When we're in lockdown, it's easy to be more sedentary. If you're working from home or not, please get up, move around often. I know it's difficult. It's like when someone says for you to do it in a long-haul flight, but you must do it, and you must get out for walks or exercise. There's different types of movement. Okay, so slow movements, things like stretching, yogas, Pilates, mobilizations are really important. We've got a lot of tissues in our body, like our muscles, our ligaments, our tendons, our fascia, which covers all your organs and muscles. That if we're sedentary all the time, it gets tense and it gets kind of sticky, and you can build up things called ground substance, which start to really create adhesions and give you that tense and stiff feeling, which again can activate the stress response. So that's a really good thing to do, is just to actually get out moving and walking, or doing some stretches that can help too. If you want to stay tuned and ask questions or send us an email, we're happy to send exercises to you, stretches that we have online, and we can always set up further webinars to go down the rabbit hole more into those areas too. Matt, do you have a question?
No, just when you finish, tell everybody to go onto Facebook in case we can't get Zoom.
Okay, so Matt's just said from a technical point of view, for everyone that's on Zoom, if you do get cut off, really apologise for that. It's saying at the moment we've got about 4.5 minutes left, but please head over to Facebook too if you'd like to carry on watching. Okay, activities. Now, in Jersey, we're blessed at the moment they haven't shut down the beaches and social areas like the sand dunes and places we can go walking on the cliff paths, so make the most of it. An activity that I'd also strongly recommend that, as we come into spring and summertime now, is a cold water swim. If you can brave it. It's amazing for you. The cold water swim, just like the breathing, again, works the cardiovascular system, because it really, even if you're only in there for about 30 seconds, or if you can brave it and take a cold shower, it seriously does train the cardiovascular system and get your arteries, your capillaries, your veins pumping and working hard, which is really, really, really good for you. Good for your central nervous system as well. And there is loads of different types of exercise. Please ask me questions if you have any specifics on it. I would really recommend, though, in lockdown state, is just doing 2 or 3 exercises that you choose. It might be a squat, it might be a push-up, running on the spot, or a particular stretch like a downward dog for people that do yoga in the morning. Something that takes you 5 minutes. Really good for your mindset, just to have something small that you do every single day. Okay, moving on to the next one, stress. Now, I've talked a little bit about, we've covered the emotional side of things already with vulnerability. There's a famous lady called Dr. Brené Brown, who's a PhD researcher that's released a book on vulnerability and the power of it. Really great read. She has a TED Talk too. There's loads of resources, but essentially, as I've already covered, if you're finding that you're feeling stressed and you're not getting irritable with everyone, if you're more introverted, talk to someone about it that you trust and share it. If you find that you are getting irritated with your loved ones and it's quite intense being indoors with them all the time and going through all this, they are going through exactly the same thing as you. We all are in our own ways and through our own perception. So share that, and it will really, connect you together. And you'll probably find a solution, as well as just feeling a hell of a lot better afterwards too. Changing your environment is good. So if you are getting stressed repeatedly, you're probably doing the same things in the same way over and over again. As humans, we have a habit of this, because it's the way our brain's wired, is to learn habits and traits and patterns that we then just repeat. So we wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we go downstairs, we make the same porridge in the same way, take our iPhone off charge, check Instagram, Facebook, email, Twitter, then we go out, we get in our cars in the same way, in the same position, drive to work, go in, say hi to the same people, sit down, get annoyed with the same people again, get annoyed with the same jobs, do the same jobs that we love, and we go home and we do the whole reverse back until we lay on our backs again. So we had a question come in from someone. And so you need to break the patterns and actually, stop doing what you're doing in that moment. Create more time to just get outside or move around the house if it's raining, and break up your environment. Take a cold shower, have a conversation, phone a loved one. As soon as you change your environment, or you do some breathing that's different, or you have something that's healthy for you, like a handful of berries or a big glass of cold water, you change your internal environment, you deactivate your stress response, and you'll notice immediately you just start to feel a tiny bit better. And you might need to do a few of those things before you really feel different. But that's just a small tip I'd recommend. Now, value systems, I'm just going to touch in a small way, okay? But essentially, values aren't, I'm not going to kill, I'm not going to steal, etc. And hopefully we won't get to that with looting. But values are actually, apparently we've got about 7 values, which are the things that you most value in life and that are most important to you. This is unique for everyone. So just like we all have our individual facial characteristics, our own personality characteristics, we all have our own values. And there's a lot of research to show that when you put your values and you experience them as activities in your daily life... Oh, we've got someone still needs to take themselves off mute. Okay, that's done. Okay, so Zoom's off anyway. It's, for example, travel, education, if you like cooking, making sure that you're actually making meals or being creative with your food every day. If you like exercise in a particular fashion, go and do it. If you love traveling and you're feeling locked down because of lockdown, then we're lucky with the internet. There's so many ways you can experience traveling. You can research it, start making plans for the future, etc., so that you're fulfilling those values. And if we perceive through our perception that we're fulfilling our values, we know that the human stress response again shuts down and calms down. And if you're experiencing it every day, you're not going to get into that cascade of perception about your daily life and your physiological needs and those hierarchical needs being taken away that puts you into a stress response. The last section I want to talk about is diet, nutrients, our immune system, etc. Now, there's a lot of different information out there. People saying you can't boost your immune system, you can boost your immune system. Look, there's no one size fits all, okay? I think the fundamental message from me is that both are kind of correct. You know, whilst you can't just suddenly take one thing that's going to boost your immune system and smack coronavirus out the way, I think it's important to realise that there are obviously nutrients and foods which improve our immune function, as well as the physical and the emotional side of things do too, because you have to be doing this in combination for it to work. If you're amazing with your diet, but you're under high amounts of emotional stress, you're just as likely for your immune system to be suppressed slightly. And so Human Health, something we created, we only had a limited number that we were selling to our clients, was health packs that involved a few key nutrients that we believed through research are really helpful on top of a healthy diet. And I think that's the main thing, is that you need to have a healthy, wholesome diet. We're lucky in Jersey to be able to still get our hands on good, local, fresh vegetables, fruit, it's just even stuff that comes from not too far abroad. We've got amazing seafood, etc. Wherever you are in the world, I'm sure everyone has their own things that they can get locally sourced, and I'd highly recommend that because it's extremely good for our gut, our health, and our immune system. It's easy when we're emotionally stressed to be going in for the sugar. You know, white breads, processed foods, things that are just easy to get our hands on. Those foods cause inflammation, they evoke the stress response. You know, you probably already noticed that they also affect our gut health. Your bowel movements won't be as good. You know, and then that affects your energy, you feel lethargic, you don't sleep as well, and it's a cascade of events that we really don't want to get ourselves onto. So people say, is there things I could be doing? You know, and what was in your health packs? Well, as I said, first of all, the most important thing is just to make sure that you're doing what we've gone through already, and that you're having a healthy, wholesome diet, mainly vegetables, you know, a lot of fruit. If you're not a vegan or vegetarian, you do eat meat, obviously eat some meat. If not, make sure you're getting the nutrients you require. On top of that, key things that research shows are good on top of a healthy diet for not just our immune system, to be honest, but our entire health, is vitamin D. Now, vitamin D, obviously we get it through the sunshine. In these areas of latitude, we haven't been getting a whole lot through the winter, and research shows you really need to kind of be in your bikini or Speedos outside for half an hour to get a good amount anyway, which I certainly haven't been doing, and no one wants to see that anyway. So at Human Health, we recommend vitamin D with K2. The reason is that, and so vitamin D also needs to be D3, which is the readily accessible form that your body takes sunshine and turns it into your blood system, is D3, which is the usable form for your bones, your functions, your brain function, your immune system. Okay, and we recommend combining that with K2 for the simple reason as it helps it go into your bone as well as just going into your blood system. Okay, we also recommend that, you know, on top of a healthy diet, if you do feel symptoms coming on, so you should, with the recommendation of vitamin D and K2 is about 10,000 international units a day for an adult, 5 to 10,000 a day. I personally would take 10,000. At the moment, there's not a lot of research on upper toxic levels, and so you can double or triple that if you would like to if you're feeling some symptoms, but only for a couple of days before bringing it down. I'm not saying that that's going to knock coronavirus on the head, okay, and it's going to kill it. It's just about making sure that your body's prepared and you've got the key nutrients that you need that you could be deficient in. I did a blood test at the end of last year and I supplemented some vitamin D. I was outside in the summer and my blood test came back through that I was low. I wasn't deficient, and I was like, geez, if I'm deficient, you know, I can see now why the research shows that everyone's deficient. The other key things are vitamin C. You can take up to 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. I think the average a lot of people are taking is 1,000 milligram. Ideally, a slow release vitamin is the best way to go. If you can get that amount through your diet, or if you have a food source to be able to take it through. So things like, you know, oranges, a range of different fruits like berries, etc. There's so many different ways you can be taking vitamin C in if you're having a broad range diet, but you can supplement it too. Because it's fantastic for the immune system, and as I'm sure a lot of people have already seen, it is being used all over the world in hospitals too. You know, to intravenously though, not through oral, you know, to high levels to help combat coronavirus and the effects of it. I think it was used in China first. We're also recommending probiotics. Now, I'd recommend this all year round anyway. if you're having good wholesome diet, you should be getting prebiotics in your food, inulins and things, from things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, berries, etc., green vegetables that really help our gut and our microbiome in our natural protection against invaders, and to make sure that we have the uptake of nutrients to make sure our immune system works well and we have a good energy. Probiotics are a really good way of actually just ensuring that you're getting it, and there's a few brands which we would recommend, so feel free to get in touch and we can always recommend one if you'd like to. Another thing which people don't talk about, and it's not that readily accessible to people, but we do have some at Human Health that I think we've nearly run out of, but it is available on the market if you can get your hands on it, is propolis. Now, again, I said there is no one thing that combats coronavirus or kills it. There's a lot of research going on as well, right now, which I'm sure you know. But propolis is something that has a flavonoid which has been researched to show that it does decrease the infectivity of viral infections. It's a natural antiviral, natural medicine or nutrient, if you would like. It's naturally antibiotic, it's naturally antifungal. There's not many things like that in nature. Propolis is the medicinal component on a beehive that they're starting to use in research for antibiotics, to start to best way to use it? Okay. Best way to use propolis, so we give it in a tincture. It's good if it's extracted in ethanol. That can be with water too. You need to be careful giving that to children, babies obviously. Again, contact us if you want any recommendations for that. I'm just talking about for adults. In our tinctures, what we would recommend adults do is to put a drop or two on the back of your tongue, no more than 2 though, at least once a day, and swipe the back of your tongue against the back of your soft palate. The reason is that any time that you then swallow, you're going to get particles going down your esophagus, into your stomach, into your intestinal system, that, again, starts to help and act. It kind of almost is a bit yellowy and tarry, and that's the sort of film that it starts to create for the active ingredient. You can also, before you start swallowing, just take 3 deep, not crazy deep, but 3 deep breaths in. And so small, tiny particles can also go into the lungs. So if you have been infected with anything into the lungs, there is research to show that it won't definitely have an impact on it. The research really showed that the flavonoids from propolis just decreased infectivity of certain viruses, and coronaviruses, not COVID-19, but coronaviruses was one of the things that they tested with it. And it also decreased the replication. So look, it's not perfect, but it's just something you can do.
7 questions.
7 questions. Okay, great. So we're nearly there. Other nutrients, water. I think it's just really important to make sure you're drinking water in this time, and good quality water. Filtered water, spring water, the best quality water you can get your hands on, okay? 3 pints a day if you're an adult, at least. If you can take on more, great, but just making sure you are hydrated, because your body needs it. The average adult's 60, 70 litres of water. We're replacing that every 7 to 10 days. If you're not replacing it, your water becomes more toxic, and if you have toxins in your diet already, sugars, alcohols, preservatives, etc., then your body's not a good place for your immune system to truly combat anything or function from, and you will feel lethargic. You might have reactions of things like eczema, etc. too. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. I know it's been a bit of a world, a fast pit. There's so much I could talk about, and I'm just trying to condense it. And as I usually do, I've gone over time anyway. So we're going to move on to questions. Matt, what were the key questions showing up?
Somebody said, my back is sore and needs adjusting. Is there any ideas on how...
Where's Lauren?
Is there any ways that we could self-adjust or just to get more comfort in case of not being able to see a chiropractor?
Yeah, so look, it's really... Please don't try and self-adjust. A lot of people tell me, someone said the other day, I was trying to adjust myself. Was I doing it right? My foot was under the fridge. I was holding onto the table and twisting myself. Please don't do that. If you hear a crack, it's not going to be a click or an adjustment or anything like your chiropractor does. It's going to be a vertebra moving that you're forcing that's probably already moving too much and needs stabilizing, releasing an audible click that might psychologically make you feel better, but it'll come back and you'll still get the irritation. So please don't try and self-adjust. However, simple things. So the stress response is such an important thing. If you do what we've already talked about and you calm yourself, you become present, self-aware, try and stop the nervous system, your central nervous system, from getting reactive, change your environment, be honest with someone, all these different steps we've talked about, eat some healthy foods, within 24 hours, you will notice that you're feeling a little bit more relaxed. I'm not saying your pain's going to go away, but the key to actually, one thing we do when we adjust you is that we connect your brain and your body. It's a key to chiropractic, is a calming of the nervous system and switching the stress response off, or at least calming it down. This is something that you can do to a degree yourself too, which is what we've been talking about. On top of that, if it's lower back pain, please email us, because there are some exercises we can send you to try and strengthen and wake up tiny little muscles in your spine that are kind of really helpful to just get things switched on. Again, it may or may not switch off the stress response, but if you've been sitting down, working from home, sedentary and stressed, the likelihood is, because gravity goes down, that if where your bum meets the chair, the loading of impact, especially if your head's been forward and your center of gravity is going to be straining there, and that's going to be affecting ligaments, triggering pain receptors and stuff, it's easily shut down. I'm also more than happy to do other webinars on things where you can actually see me doing them, but we're restricted for time today. But things like hamstring stretches, quadricep stretches, spinal mobilizations, we've never been in a better time for resources like YouTube. Even if you're a beginner, just to put in something like basic beginners spinal mobility exercises into YouTube and follow them. As I said, you're more than welcome to email us and ask for the resources we have. I think we have some videos on YouTube too, of Matt and Lauren doing some exercises too. So I hope that's helpful, but yeah, the key thing is please don't try and self-adjust, because when we can get to you and start looking after you from a chiropractic point of view too, we don't want there to be too much worse.
Next one, what to do if desperate to see a chiropractor over here?
I think, have I just answered that question? Maybe. If you're desperate to see a chiropractor, okay, currently under the law, we can see people for urgent or emergency appointments. We have a specific setup, and we're taking that in a case-by-case basis. So if you're really desperate for that, there are other practitioners which are doing the same thing on the island. If you'd like to come and see us, you can just email hi@humanhealthcenter.com and request that. We're beginning it from next Tuesday. Because we can't do much, we're really restricting the way we can work. We can only see so many people. And there are certain guidelines and things that you have to consent to also. So please get in touch with us if you'd like to know more.
This one. If you came in originally for pain,
yeah.
You've now not been having regular appointments, will I go back to how I was before?
Yeah, okay, this is a fantastic question. I saw this come through on the emails. If you were doing really well with your adjustments, and I'm so sorry for this situation, how it's impacted people like us in our care. I'm sure dentists, doctors would be exactly the same too. I know someone that was going in for surgery and had to be taken out of surgery. Anyone in healthcare has been affected by this. If you were getting chiropractic care and you were making really, really good progress, you are not going to go back to square one. Okay, and the reason is because every adjustment builds on the next that we give you. Symptoms go away first before healing happens. So every adjustment is along a stage of healing and the way that the body's kind of healing and reacting to it. So we're changing the way with an adjustment, and this is what the research shows us, is we're literally remodeling or changing the way your brain controls and understands your body. Okay, so anyone that doesn't know what chiropractic is a hands-on primary healthcare tool that can be used for healing and for the well-being of yourself. You may use it if you don't have symptoms, you might use it if you have symptoms. It's fantastic for the nervous system health. And if you're having it before and having symptoms that are starting to come back, it doesn't mean that you're going back to square one. Your brain, your body would have retained things that we've taught it, depending on what you've done in the meantime. If you've fallen down the stairs or injured yourself, you could have created a new injury, or you could have re-impacted and caused inflammation in the same area from before. There's many variables, and I'd have to talk to you individually to work out exactly what would be going on in your instance. So please reach out, because especially if you're a client of ours, and even if you're not, our whole team is here to help you. Just email hi@humanhealthcenter.com, and I'd rather give you like an individual and tailorized response to that to make sure that you get help that you require. But no, you're not going to go back to where you came from, is my answer. And as soon as we can get going, as long as you look after your central nervous system and health and well-being in this meantime, we will endeavour to give you the best quality care afterwards that will just pick up straight from where you left off, to be honest. Even if you think you're healed, I can guarantee you there's probably some things that still need care. But hopefully, if you are doing fantastic, we just reduce your schedule down anyway.
One more.
Yeah.
Just a couple of positive tips on how to stay mentally or positively
So a couple of positive tips on how to stay.
Especially in self-isolation, how can you make
Yeah,
positive?
okay, so I saw a couple of questions came through before we started about, there was one person had moved to Switzerland, so if you're still watching, yeah, hello, I hope you're well, and I hope that's been a good move for you. I think, if you've missed, did they miss the tips on that?
No,
Okay,
no,
I'll just
no,
repeat
no.
it anyway.
Yeah.
So in self-isolation, if you're feeling self-isolated and you're feeling the stress response that we've talked about, then we talked about just becoming present, just realizing that in that moment, so right now, I'm not a chiropractor or a victim of coronavirus or whatever, I'm actually just a person in a room or someone that's having a drink or putting a kettle on. It sounds really, I really don't want that to sound condescending. It's quite a famous person and psychologist who came up with this concept that if someone's in a prison cell, in that moment they're just a person in a room, and that's the fact of presence. But just generally moving on from presence onto self-awareness, I think a key to any kind of human behavior and self-actualization, if you are someone that would like to become better in yourself, you need to become more self-aware. That's something for us all. So key tips for you, if you are feeling stressed from being isolated and in lockdown, your value systems, return to your value systems, okay? You are 98, 99% the same as a chimp, okay? Or even a fly, I think it's 97% or something in our genetics. We have very similar ways in which our body works. However, we are all unique. And the unique section in our genetics is called your telomeres. Now, it's a bit geeky, okay, so hold on with me, but I find this fascinating because the ancient Greek word telos translates from ancient Greek into English into purpose and your individual purpose. Now, our telencephalon in our brain is our advanced conscious brain that the human brains have that's different from animals, apparently. And this connects and talks directly to your telomeres, which is the individual parts of your genetics that allows, apparently in your expression of your personality, individuality in who you are. So within that if you understand that, what that basically means is that the reason why you might like cooking and another person might like travel, another person might be very introverted and just like spending time by themselves. Another person might only feel love when they're connecting, having physical contact with other people and chatting, spending time with friends, and they might be more extroverted. And so these are representations of your values. There's a guy called Dr. John Demartini who has an amazing book called The Values Factor, who teaches this. He's a famous human and behavior researcher and analyst. He also, if you go on his website, drjohndemartini.com, you can do a values determining process to find out what your values are. It's something you should be doing all the time, really, because fundamentally, if you know what your values are, which are usually things like, what would you read 500 books about? What was the one thing that you would never take away from yourself, that you admire about yourself? So like, let's say if there's something that you really admire about yourself that you would never sell for any amount of money, even to get you out of self-isolation and lockdown, what is that? These kind of questions give you clues, but I would strongly recommend doing his work and looking at it to actually help determining that. Once you understand at least one or two of your values, if you can get to 7, fantastic. Don't judge them too, because you can change them and rework them at any point. Start putting them in your life every day. Georgie and I were saying at home the other day, right, okay, let's return to our values. Even in lockdown, what's one thing we can do every day that's relative to our values and relative to my values? And we chose a couple of things for ourselves that we could start doing, even if it was just 30 minutes every day. And for her, that was really important too, because she's 6 weeks or 5 weeks post giving birth, still in that recovery stage 2. And anyway, we both found that very useful, and it's something I always come back to. Yeah. Any other questions, Matt? No. Okay, good. Right, guys, we're going to wrap up. That's been an hour. I hope that's been useful. And as I said, I'm not a guru. I don't know everything. But if there's one thing that you've taken away from today that was useful, then that's all really what I was afterwards. Sending our best wishes and my best wishes to everyone, all your families. I hope everyone just stays well. Please just follow some of these concepts, and if you're confused or want further information, just email our team, get in touch with us. We are going to come out through the other side of this, and whilst it's a pretty shit situation for a lot of us, And there's a lot of very understandable stresses and inconveniences to people's lives, and all from all walks of life. There's a lot of good that's going to come from this too, and I think one of the key things in that is human connection. There's a lot of things from us from a business point of view that we've realised we weren't pulling our finger out before that it's made us do. This is one of them. So I hope it's been useful, and look forward to catching up with you guys soon. Okay?